Okay, everybody, it's about 12:23, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. Hi there, I see myself. Hi, Alex, good to see you. And during the screencast, if you should have a question, I think you can hold your hand up over there, or just if you don't have a microphone, why, then go ahead and shoot me an email, or you can always ask a question. So glad to see you here. I'm hoping we should have a whole bunch of us. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started since this is recorded, and I'll close that off there. Glad to have you here. And I wanted to just kind of walk everybody through it. Alex, of course, you can always see this again on the video or wherever. But I wanted to talk to us today. We've covered navigating through the Canvas room and all that business. So I want to move us on over here to week number 1, and that's where we're at. And that's the weeks of 8, 28, and 30. Now, I will be on campus Thursday, and everybody who listens to the recording should know this. I have a class from 12:30 to 1:45, this class, and then I may have a meeting. I'm not sure, but usually I'm around for the entire afternoon because I have a 6 o'clock class on Thursdays. And of course, you can always reach me at email, and I try to give everybody my schedule. Now, one of the things I'm letting everybody know, and I'm going to try to get around and send an email, is that tomorrow, which is Wednesday, it's always such a hassle getting out of commencement, getting over there, getting out all that stuff. So I'm going to have a pre-recorded screencast for my 11 o'clock class, and then I also will for the 2 o'clock class. So any of you who may be in either one of those classes, those will be I'm doing pre-recorded screencasts there, and I'll be at Shawnee tomorrow. After commencement, basically what we all do is we go and we have to change our shirts out because it's so hot, and then I'll be at the office and I'll have office hours. Now, here in week 1, I want to go ahead and get us started and moving in terms of an overview of the course and why you're taking it. Okay, and so I want to go into some files over here. And I want to talk about the first one. And this is a PDF. It's business data roles. Now, I'm often asked by students, by the dean, etc., why do we have these courses? All right. And the only thing I can really tell everybody is that over time, we've come to understand that this technology is changing so fast, and especially database technology, that you have to be conversant with it. You may not have to be a database administrator, but you have to, at the very least, have an understanding and a working knowledge. And so I'm going to zoom this up so we can take a look at it. Now, this is from a gentleman who teaches over at Duke. So it's a pretty reputable institution. And he did a survey and he asked all types of companies, sizes, and et cetera, what data or information system skills are you after with people? And what you got, you could see these. You could download it to see it a little clearer if you want to. And these skills that we cover in the BISS courses primarily give all of you who take them the skill sets of a business analyst. So you not only leave with your degree, maybe a minor, but you also have this as a distinctive part of your degree. And understanding databases is absolutely essential because we spend so much money on the collection and storage of data, and we're generating so much of it. But I can tell you now, these skill sets, which we cover in the BISS courses, this is what the marketplace is telling us that they want. So we didn't just dream this up to make sure we had courses to teach you or to torture you. I have another file, and I'm going to go ahead and get that off. And that'll move us more into the course. And this is the analytical cube. Now, I want us to think about this for just a minute. And you can download it if you want, okay? And to try and get a closer look at it. But if you look here, you're going to see that we've got a business, and they're dealing with they're dealing with data and information. And so we use this analytical cube as a way to say the stuff that we collect from our customers, our vendors, etc. What do we do with it? How do we apply it? What can we get from it, extract from it? And you're going to see that we've got data about the product. We've got data here about the retailer. You even have time, i.e. data. And so when we become a student at data administration, we learn how to get crosscuts of this to drill down, literally, diagonal types of queries that give us insights about our company, that give us insights about our competitors, that give us insights about our customers. Now, the best company in the world at this is Capital One. Capital One started as Signet Bank, a little bank in Virginia, and the people at Capital One said went and they had a program to sell them, and they said, okay, would you take our program? And they took it, and they grew. They used analytics to run experiments to figure out what kind of credit card deals to offer customers. How do we find the customers who provide us the greatest value? And that is going to be the people who end up paying you the highest amount of interest, either in terms of rate or in volume. And just saw somebody come here. Let me see here. Join us. Hi, Libby. Glad to see you there. Heath as well. Good. Glad to see you guys. Now, Capital One said, okay, they use these analytics and they'd run experiments, and they would basically do an alpha beta. They'd say, okay, we're going to send a card offer to people who, you know, we've been giving them unsecured credit cards with a $1,000 limit at 18%. What happens if we give them more money? This is so they can identify their most profitable customers. So this idea of the analytical cube, and if you have your microphone on, please mute it. The whole idea was to take this information, and as we begin to coordinate it, we begin to plumb it. We'll plumb this data and look at it, extract it. We're going to start to see patterns emerge. Things are going to hit our radar. Now, in addition, this course also talks about, and we will talk about, and you've heard me say this before, those KPIs, okay, that every company has to have on their dashboard. And those are knowledge performance indicators or key performance indicators, depending on the approach you take. So again, when I could get data that tells me what time of day someone bought something from me, what they bought, how they paid for it, how many times they'd come to the site, was it once, or had they kind of sniffed around and looked for what they were after, had they put something in the cart and taken it out, all of that, we have the capacity then to build this picture of our business. We have the ability to do forecasting and modeling, and this is really the heart of it. Now, it's important for you to understand, because as you move on out to work, you're going to be working for people who will either have or will start to buy what we call dashboards. These are the 5 things you need to know about your company. The 5 things that, and the dashboard, the nature of it will change depending on the level of hierarchies in a company. Now, I've done a lot of work with churches, and as I've said before, I throw them into great consternation when I ask them, tell me the 5 things you need to know every day. And that's exceptionally problematic for them. So this course is not about programming. This is not intended to turn you into a data geek. What we will do is we're going to give you two valuable insights, and we'll see this exemplified. One is understanding that a database technology implies a business model. You say, what do you mean? Let's take eBay for a moment. What is eBay other than a giant database that's populated by people who have stuff they want to sell? And then eBay acts as the intermediary between those parties. So the database became a part of their business model. Certainly Amazon is the same. It's a database. That's really all there is to it. If you go to Netflix, what is Netflix? Netflix is a database, okay? And they're trying to morph themselves into a full-fledged media company by providing their own content. It's the same with HBO. It's the same with these phone companies. They're trying to leverage all this data we've got. And so that brings us back to another thing, which I believe I included in here, and that should be the wisdom triangle. I want to pop down here and talk with you about it. And here it is, the wisdom triangle. Now, other than databases, my big role in all this has been work in what we call knowledge management. Okay, it's an extremely interesting piece of things, but it's also extremely vital. The average employee who leaves a company, the average employee leaves with about $25,000 worth of data and knowledge in their head. They walk out the door. The reason that, for example, in Silicon Valley, that if you go to work for one of those firms, they make you sign they make you sign an agreement, a non-compete agreement, is they don't want you to leave and go to work for somebody else and give them the technology. And all the running battles those companies have, they're suing each other all the time over licensures, patents, copyrights, and then they're also trying to deal with the biggest bunch of intellectual property thieves in the world, and that's the Chinese. Chinese government and arms of it are notorious about coming in and reverse engineering products, or coming in and sniffing through, or even having people that are working in large companies walking out with their patented data. And part of all this business, when Obama was president, of trying to get this big deal together, was to get the Chinese to say, okay, we'll police it. All right? And that's because if you have intellectual property and you own it, it needs to be protected. Well, let's talk about this wisdom triangle for just a moment. And this is something, and let me see if I can open this up for us. There we go. And we start first of all, okay, with data. That's the very bottom. And when we get what we call actionable data, data I can take an action on, I've got something. If it's replicable, then I have what we call information. And it's really stuff for the short-term operational focus. I sold 10,000 copies of Harry Potter yesterday. Okay, do I need to order more Harry Potter books? Do I need to maybe promote them more? What? When I have data I can act upon, then I have information. It's actionable. It's also replicable. I can keep track of how many books I bought from how many books I sold, how many Harry Potter books I sold every week, every month, all of that. Okay, that's at the lowest part of this wisdom triangle. Okay, and that's at the very start. It's operational, it's short term. Then we kind of come to something, and I'm putting these in terms of company strategy. It's important to understand, and if you'll hear me say this through all of these BISS courses that you take, okay? We're not trying to make you programmers. We're not trying to make you tech geeks. If I show you how a spreadsheet's put together, okay, then when you encounter any kind of analytical engine like that, you're going to say, oh, okay, this looks familiar. Okay, yeah, I get it. Because Excel Excel's the granddaddy of them all. And if you know how to use Excel and you start to understand it, when you encounter some other products that are out there, you'll be okay. It's the same with databases. And you'll come to understand that much better. Now, I'm glad to see some other folks. Does somebody have a question? I see Rhett, Heath, Libby. Okay, good. Glad to see you here. Okay, now, let me go on here with this, but the whole point is this is what we call medium-term or tactical data. And this is replicable and reproducible information, gives us knowledge. And I harken back. Now, if you really want to see the inside story, excuse me, on Capital One, the book Competing on Analytics covers the Capital One story and the example they set. Now, they're kind of one piece of this. The other would be Harrah's Casino and Harrah's Incorporated. When you understand that they are dependent upon maximizing the dollar, the volume and profit for every square foot of a casino, you can understand why they are business analysts to the core, why the analytical cube is so important to them, so that they have all kinds of data about their customers and their customers' playing habits. And they even design the layout of those places to get the maximum dollar from you. And so this is, I didn't make up these rules. This is the world now in which you're going to be leading in companies and doing business. Well, then we come up to what we call business wisdom. And this is generalizable and reproducible knowledge. And it's long-term and it's strategic. And I give you, okay, a little blurb there that gives you that, for example, a SWOT analysis. Okay, so this is when we show you how Access works, we do some work with SQL, which is kind of the granddaddy of all of the specialized languages for doing searches and so forth. You understand. If I take you out and again, the analogy, if I show you how to drive a car, all right, you can drive a Ford Focus You could drive a Ford F500. You could drive a Mustang. Now, when you get ready to drive the Lamborghini, you better have a big deposit, and you better be careful, because a vehicle like that will get out from under you real fast, because it's a sports car. But once you know how a car is driven, once you understand how a database works and what it's supposed to do, then you become say, oh wow, how can I use this as a piece of my business model to build a sustainable corporation? And I can't emphasize this enough to you. So have your eyes and ears open as we work with this. And as we go through the course, time and again, I'm going to be showing you examples of where people are applying databases to do good things, to meet people's needs, etc. Well, I'm going to take this back down here for a sec, okay? And I'm going to close off the wisdom triangle. I think we've talked about that. So now I want to make sure, all right, that we're all on top and you have the textbooks. I want to make sure of that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the syllabus. Okay, this is the syllabus for fall. I probably have it under fall. Okay. I know the syllabus is over here. All right. I'm kind of like the cobbler who had to fix his kid's shoes. All right. All right. Let's pop up here, and I'm going to go back over for a second. I'll close that off. And I want to go in and scroll. Let me scroll us up and get us up here to the up into this area here in the announcements, and I have all those bits of data for you. I want the modules, excuse me. I want to make sure, and hopefully you've looked at the orientation video, and I want to make sure that you have all the textbooks for the course. Okay. And you'll find the syllabus over here. And you'll need to start. You'll need to get it and take a look at it. And we'll get there. And here's the syllabus for fall 2018. And I'm going to open it up back again just to pre-emphasize the textbooks. The Patrick textbook, that's, I think I showed you guys on Amazon the other day. We're going to learn a little bit about SQL and executing queries. Once you've done it for a week or two, you're going to be going, oh, okay, I see this and I understand. But you'll also run into some things that you'll need to know to be able to have an intelligent discussion with the people in IT, whether they're a vendor or they're internal folks. Then this book on business intelligence, okay, and you'll be doing some exercises out of it, and I think I have some exams from it. And then we have the POTSI text where we're exploring Microsoft Access. Okay, so those are the textbooks, and you should have them by now, and we'll be moving through them. Now, I'll go back to the modules section, and I'll close this up quickly, and we're down here in week 1, and I have a file here for you on what we call data warehouse concepts and architectures. Now, this is from some people, folks at Colorado University put together. When we talk about a database, it becomes more powerful, and it becomes more than just simply a technology or a platform when we use it as a warehouse and we buy into that idea of a data warehouse and the architectures that are part of it. And this is they walk us through this whole session of things, okay? And some of the motivations and characteristics for doing that. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's I've got it in a PowerPoint, and you'll probably you will want to download it in order to get the data. Now, this is an important piece of it, and I want to talk about it for a few minutes. We have what we call decision-making hierarchies, okay? Now, I used to teach the policy course at OBU. Dr. Cragen does now, okay? I've done a lot of work with strategic planning, and I'm involved in a big project right now with a community up in Missouri. They're a private community. I worked there about 20 years ago, and they're trying to do some forward planning. One of the big issues that they face is they have a water system that they own, but the water district there is saying because that community owns that water, they have the pipes, the whole bit. They have their own water company, and it's saved the people there lots of money and made an attractive place to live. But the water district has come to them and said, hey, you need to think about this because you're coming upon year 30 of some major repairs and digging up roads, replacing equipment like it's expensive. And so they have a decision to make. Do they want to? It's the classic buy or sell kind of decision, because the people at the water district said, look, if you sell it to us, okay, we can give you some credits on your water bills for so long far out. Now, I've worked with them, helped them run the numbers, and as the crow flies, if you will, for the people in that community, it will be a tremendous benefit for them to sell off that water system, because it is getting old, and when you're in a closed private community and you replace something like that, it comes from your HOA fees, your homeowner association fees, and it will be a bite for people. But it's an emotional decision for them too. It's a sense of independence, and one that they've cultivated. They have their own security force. They have their own fire department. Basically, they're a little city, but they also have a resort. They have like 6 lakes. 3 of those lakes are dammed with certified dams from the state of Missouri. It was a job. It was the most fascinating job I ever had, because every day it was something different, and you learn so much. I learned how roads are made. I learned a lot about architectural control and zoning and all that stuff. Well, all of that to say, we make decisions in terms of a hierarchy. We start at the lower, which is operational, daily stuff. And typically those problems are of the run-of-the-mill type, okay? Then we move into what we call tactical types of decision-making. And this is a little bit higher up. Now, it might have a 2 to 3 year span. That's why we call it tactical. And then we, of course, have the very top, the strategic, which is more, which is the longest term and the more closer to the core business or core business activities that are the reason that company exists and gets paid. And I give you some typical decisions there for that decision-making hierarchy. To do that, you've got to have data. You've got to have information. I think I probably shared this. I know I did, and I share it all the time. It just astounds me that with the, and I went through a training course at Esri, which I believe they're in Redlands, California. the world's top map makers. I went through a course called The Location Advantage, and the project was to find a retail location with all these variables. I get it done in 45 minutes. It would take my father, when he did that type of work, months. So you can see how fast that technology pushes things. So that's why it's so very important, is because it really is a tool that we can use to sustain the company. And all information technology, all information systems ultimately should be decision-centric, tools that help you as a decision maker choose what you're going to do. Okay, well, I think I'm kind of giving you some broad brush strokes there. So we'll go back over here to the modules. Pardon me, we're going to go into the files. I'm sorry, we're going to the files. And I'm glad to see we should have far more of us here, but I'm certain there are going to be some people who are going to be on-demand types. And we're going to look for a file that deals with using Access, the Access Workshop number 1, where we're going to start to learn about some of these key ideas and using that architecture. And let me do a search over here. Move this out of the way. Well, I'll find that. All right, just a second here. And I'll grab it for us. All right. Here we are, Data Warehouse Access Data Warehouse AW1. This is an Access database. This is one of the Access workshops that you'll upload. There are 4 of them, and this is number 1. So what I'm going to do with this, Jewel, is I'm going to download it to my desktop. And I'll put it in the folder. Okay, and I'm going to put it over here in my desktop, and we're going to talk about this concept of a data warehouse. And in fact, what I'm going to do is take this down so I can open this. So you see, after today, I can kind of do what you've done. I've done other classes. I download the file and then I upload it where it's supposed to be, get the credit. Yes, that's the workshop portion of this course. I don't think you can understand this stuff unless you do it. Now, I would tell you also, as we work through these problems and these workshop pieces, I'm getting you ready for the projects that you'll be doing and the final exam projects I'll ask you to do. So we need to be, you need to look at this as to get you ready for the bigger challenges. So I'm opening up this data warehouse file, okay? And I'm going to enable the content. And you're going to start to see some things that are very interesting. First of all, and I want to talk about the software itself, okay? And I'm going to save it on my desktop. And I'll put it up here. Okay. Now, first I want to make sure that you see, and you say, this looks a lot like Excel. It looks a little bit like Word, a little bit exactly. All of these pieces of software, Access is the granddaddy of all the databases that are commercially used. And at one time, it was state of the art. It's been surpassed, trust me, by all kinds of other products. One of them you'll get to try thinking here is going to be SAS Visual Analytics, if I'm not mistaken. But you'll see it works from a ribbon and tree basis. Here's the ribbon, here's the tree, and this starts to give me some choices in terms of this, just like I get choices of formatting, choices of types of numbers. And then we have, of course, we have the objects here. Now we have some interesting objects. Now, as we talked about in BISS 1123, when you kind of got your feet wet with access, all databases have the following objects. They have a table, that's where the data are stored, okay? They have a query engine, and that is a way to extract the data out of those tables, okay? So they have a place to store them, a place to extract them, all right? Then they have a report function or a display function. And the fourth, which is important, but, well, it's useful, is it has the ability to automate, okay? And those are the four pieces of it. Pardon me, forms, and then kind of 4A, forms are where I can input data on a much more intuitive basis as opposed to just typing stuff in a table. And as you'll hear me say before, you go to Amazon, you go to buy something, you're basically working with a form that then converts itself to a query as you start looking for stuff. And then eventually it becomes a full-fledged fact database when you make a purchase, and we'll see what we're talking about. But I want you to look at this for a moment here, and you can see we have all access objects, and I'm going to drill that down just to the tables, and then we'll look at the other objects. Now you're going to see something in the nomenclature here, the names of these tables, that is kind of an old school thing. Long ago, people worked at databases, they worked at the DOS level. Today, people want icons and all that stuff. So we have them. So this is dim channel, dim customer. This is what we call a dimension. A dimension is like a variable. And you'll notice here the salesperson, the type of sales. This is a sales database. And dimension, a customer. And then you see this thing called fact sales. Now I'm going to open that up for us. And fact sales is nothing more than a listing of all of the sales that have occurred. This is a sales database. All right. It's a warehouse. It's oriented around selling data. And this fact sales, okay, has all of the important dimensions as well as the sales date, what occurred, what was sold, etc., the order number, the line cost. This is, it's not a great analogy, but it's very close to what we would have when we work with a general journal, for all intents and purposes. And we call it a fact sales because these are facts. They've occurred. And typically we'll have something in a fact table that we can multiply. We can do mathematical computations. We can multiply, add, subtract, etc. And we have the sales date, the customer ID, the channel ID, the sales type, the line price. So we have a transaction. Now, what we don't have here, which we should have, is some type of sales ID number. But they've chosen not to do that. We just have the straight fact table. Everybody has a fact table. And the better you are at designing them, the easier it is to run queries from them. So these dimensions, these are things that, they're variables, okay? Marketing channel, customer, product, sales, and then we come to the fact sales table, okay? And I'll open up a dimension table, the channel. This just deals with, okay, what marketing channel did we use? And we have 3 of them: the internet, mail, and phone. Now let's go down and we'll, as we go further, we're going to see something called prod. Those are product tables, pardon me, production tables. And let's look at this. We have a category of items that we sell. We have the production channels, customers, production. We have an order summary, and I'll open that up for a minute. Let's take a gander at it. These production tables, it's not a very good name for them, but they're so called because they're necessary for us to look at overall production in terms of events. And then we have the return detail. So they have items that are returned. So these aren't necessarily, these aren't really these are specialized, I call them specialized fact tables for all intents and purposes. Now, we're going to look at the next type of object, and we're going to look at forms. And does this thing have any forms? No, it doesn't. I'm going to close this off for a minute, okay? And it doesn't have any forms. A form is a way for me to input data in a more intuitive fashion than I normally would. And I'm going to click Create. I'm going to come over here to More Forms, and I may use the form wizard. Let's just see what we get here. Play with it. Okay. The dimension over here. And you can see I can change the design of it and all this stuff. But now I have, if I'm going to be changing things like recording orders or whatever, I'm definitely going to want this. It's just an intuitive way. And in 1123, we did some of this, so it should not seem that foreign to you. Now we're going to come to the queries. And you'll notice we have a number of types, and I'm going to click Create on here. Okay, and you'll notice I have a query wizard or a query design. I'm going to go to the query design, okay, so you can see what it looks like and what we're dealing with. 95% of all queries are what we call just simply an input. Basically, they're just nothing more than we're saying, okay, give me this data. We're just collecting data. And then we have some queries that allow us to append data to tables. As you can see, we can update tables. We can make a table with queries. And you'll see here, this should be familiar to you. This is what we call the graphic user interface. And we worked at this level when we were working on, when we were in 1123. And then there's the SQL view, and that's at the query level where we put in some language. Now, these queries, and I'm just going to show you the design view on this, will tell us what's going on. Now, this append orders, what we're going to do is we're going to take some orders and we're going to add them to an existing table. And as we see this, notice we've got these connections between these tables. And this is where we start to get into some of the issues in terms of design. And these two are connected on the basis of order summary. And if I'm interested in that, I can put my cursor right there and I'll click relationships. And it should give us, it's not give us that. What do we want here? Okay, it's not going to do that because these are, because it's, okay. Let me show you something. Of course, we talked about the primary key. Okay, here we have a primary key and then what we call a foreign key embedded in it. Order summary is the primary key over the product order summary, production table, and in the production order detail, it's just one of the fields. But you can see, I'll move this over a little bit, the order date, and we can enter a date between some beginning date and ending date. And then we have the customer ID and all of these different dimensions to append. Now, and here's one where we append returns. There's some returned items. Here's where we create a channel, we create a customer, we create a product. The one that is going to be intuitively the most sense to us is going to be something like this, where we create a sale. And notice those two tables are connected. And again, that very familiar pattern where I have a primary key in one table, that's that little that little light bulb thing, and then the order summaries over in the product order detail. And we hook them together. Now, I can view this, the results set, and I didn't grab anything, so I just got an empty set. Now, let's go back down to the design view for this query. And we'll go down to an SQL view, and there's the SQL. And once you get familiar with it, it's not going to look like total gibberish to you. But the whole point, we'll go back up here to the design view, is that we're going to be able to create we're going to be able to go in and pull data on sales to try to perform some analysis or to gain some type of insight. So if I put all objects, now let me stop for a minute. Here's I want to show you the heart of this whole thing. I'm gonna close this off. Okay. And this is the data warehouse sales. And I'm opening it. And this, now you understand why we call it a warehouse, because it keeps all of this data. So when you have a warehouse, when you need to fill an order, you go into the stacks where the stuff's at, you get it and you bring it out. It's the same concept here. And it's just simply, I have table after table after table of data. I run a query and I pull it up. Now this is the data warehouse sales table where we pulled information up out of the warehouse. Now, one of the things that is important to understand is that I would take this table, and if I want to do some heavy lifting analytically, okay, I would probably export this table into Excel and do the work there. I might put it in as a pivot table. I might just take the raw data and put it in and draw charts from it, filter it, sort it to my heart's content. Now you can do that here in this tool, and you can do it in most databases, but frankly, unless you've got really nice, sophisticated software like SAP or whatever, just take it and throw it back in Excel, and plumb the data to your heart's content. When we do queries, we have what we call, or what I call, regular on-demand queries, stuff I run every week. And then I have those, what we call a serendipitous query, where somebody says off the wall, How many people who own a Ford Explorer bought these red tennis shoes and are located in the zip code 73170? These red tennis shoes, who were these people? That's when you do one by serendipity. And if you just go through the database, and it's important to make sure that you keep that to a minimum, because the database has its greatest power in pulling known relationships for you, okay? And so we've got this data warehouse sales table. Here's the sales unit, okay, from me. And then we have reports. Those are pretty simple. And they ask me to enter a date. This is a parameter query. Now I'm going to close these off for just a minute because I want to let you see this. Now I'm going to do this report or product analysis in design view. Okay? And we create a parameter query by asking the person who's executing the query, the end user, to give us a date. Okay? You want to find out this information. What dates are you searching for? This is a drill down, and we're getting the information out of there by date. We can also have it by sales. You see another report. So we see all of these objects that are part of what we call a data warehouse. Now, I'm going to close this off, all right, and I'm going to put all the dimensions back in there. So we have all objects, and you can see we have the dimension channels. Now, dimension tables, and this has got a table. Let me say, you remember in 1123, when we were working with databases and we would design these things called lookup tables, so I could create a little drop-down menu and not have to input the same stuff and make sure certain the information about a particular dimension is always put in the same way. Well, this is primarily their role. And here's a salesperson dimension, okay? And so we have them coded, and we know who they are. And so this whole idea is that we store data in a table, okay? And we should have, when we've imported a table or we've stored data in a table, we should have utilized a form that populates that table with the data that we want. And the closest now that we're going to have in here is going to be the fact table, fact sales table. Let's open it back up. And notice the line cost, the line price, the type of sales, the product ID, the salesperson, the channel ID, the customer, what bought. And here's something that I can take and I can import it into Excel again, and I can visualize these data. I can put them into a chart. I can filter and sort them. And that's probably going to be the easiest thing for you to do if you're dealing with a reasonable number of sets of data. Now you can do some work in here and you can stay in the database, but what we see increasingly is that folks will use the database like it should be, and that is it's a collection of stuff. And then I say, okay, think of it like a refrigerator, and I go, okay, what am I going to eat tonight? And then you throw it out into Excel and you figure out what you're going to do with that data. You have some questions, you analyze it. And so that's that whole notion of what we call interoperability, where we are starting to use the database as a platform for an Excel sheet or something like that, that we can then create we can create what people call a BISS today. That's the thing in vogue. Basically, we're talking about charts and tables, maybe with some animation added to them or pictures. something that we can see and that's intelligible to us, that makes some sense. This is just a whole pile of data, and it can get lost very, very quickly. So this is the first workshop. So this AWS 1, you'll want to download it to your desktop, save it there, and then upload it, and you'll find the place there in the modules where Access Workshop 1 is due. But I wanted to introduce you to this concept. And if you think back for a moment when we took you through the analytical cube, okay, and we looked at the products, we looked at the retailer, we looked at the dates. I think also under there was the volume of sales. What did we sell? We drilled down to get that data, and this fact sales table tells us all the stuff we need to know about transactions that have occurred. I can analyze this just about most of the time. If you can take the number of columns in a table times the number of columns, and that will tell you how many basic analyses you can run. Okay, you say, oh, okay, this is great, but what does this got to do with me as an end user decision maker? Well, you're going to be one of the people who is going to have to determine, do we have the right dimensions in here? Is there something that we're missing? Because if you don't, there's going to be some, if you don't make good choices, then you're going to be getting a lot of junk because it's of no use to you. Do you want to know the date the sale occurred? Absolutely. You got to know it. Got to know it for tax purposes, got to know for reporting purposes. The customer ID, do I care whether I know who bought it or not? Well, yeah. Okay. So that's no brainer. The channel ID, absolutely. Now, so far, I sound a lot like a marketing person. And I'm going to tell you now, marketing is, and those of you who are taking courses with Dr. Green, let me tell you, he is one of those people that's out there who understands about digital media, digital marketing, and how powerful a tool it is. Okay? Now, I know there's some stuff like privacy concerns and all of those kinds of things, but it's a very, very powerful force when we can go out and scrape all this data off of Twitter or scrape a bunch of data off of Facebook. Let's stop there. I'll give you a great example because, look, folks, for all intents and purposes, Facebook is a database that's morphing itself into an entertainment platform. You're starting to see people live stream stuff from Facebook. It's also a repository, and where people upload their pictures, they upload their thoughts, and Facebook builds some customer value for your user. You'll get a little thing every now and then that says, here's some memories from 3 years ago, and you know, or who you've been friends with, and all that type of stuff. They also had product endorsements. During the 2016 election, they found out it was very important to know these dimensions and to understand them, because bad actors will often add other dimensions into their dimension tables that you probably shouldn't have privacy data. So we see the usefulness of this. Do I want to know the salesperson? Of course, the product, the sales type, the line price, the line cost, and the order number. Okay, and I want to have those. I want to have any numbers. So again, this table is basically like a blank canvas with a bunch of paint, whatever you use, ready to paint something or to draw a picture or a sketch. That's why we'll take it and put it into a tool like Excel that's designed to handle that and give you the best of both worlds, which is why I've said before, pivot tables are the most powerful tools, except, well, I'd say Solver, the optimizers, and the pivot tables are the most powerful tools in Excel. I like pivot table a lot because it lets me easily change the blocks. Think of that analytical cube like Rubik's Cube. You know, and I just change the sides and I get different looks and I might get an insight. So we've got data here that's factual that we can work with. This is pretty much it in the first step of warehousing the data. And now, where you are the most important is up here in the dimensions, because you have to ask yourself, are we getting the right data? Are we getting relevant data about the customer or our vendor or the products that we offer? You'll notice, for example, if you buy something from Amazon and you buy several things, you'll get an email stream from them that says, tell us about your product. Tell us about the delivery. They want that feedback. It goes into their data warehouse so they can figure out which of their vendors out there is doing a lousy job of shipping the stuff to us, which one of them are doing really good, which they're about average. For Amazon, you do a search and you'll see, you've all had this experience. I know what they start to give you, they populate a report with so-and-so in this kind, so-and-so in New Jersey, so-and-so in Texas, and they have something that may be the best price, that type of stuff, and you buy from one of them. Now, Amazon gets a cut of the deal because they provide the platform for you to show up. Amazon is becoming more and more, the e-commerce side, the only way I can describe it is like a mall for all intents and purposes. Well, then of course you see the fact sales table, then we have these production tables. But the whole idea is for me to collect the data in as efficient a way as possible, store it, and then query it, extract it out to get information and then knowledge and then some business wisdom. And that's how these all start to fit together. Now, Access is a really, really super good first car to drive. Okay, it's a first car to drive, and it's designed to be that. And at one point it was as close to state of the art as it gets. Of course, now it's only individuals use them. Maybe some small businesses might use it, or they may have it. They may be using SharePoint and using that. So they put it into a database management system, a DBMS. But your key thing is to say, okay, do we have the right dimensions? Are we getting the right type of information on people or on customers, etc.? And again, you said, well, what if I had a dimension called order errors? Would that be helpful to me? Oh yeah. There's nothing more fun than ordering something from FedEx, apart from Amazon or whoever you buy, and you get the wrong stuff. Or you get the stuff and it doesn't work, or it's damaged. And do you want that data? Of course you do, because you want to make sure you don't lose that relationship with that customer. Other than trying to get insights, most companies use their data warehouse and the analytics they can pull out from them for customer relationship management. Okay, so they can contact you and how you doing and blah 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 blah. But you want to stay in contact with your customer. Why? It costs you 25 times as much to get a new customer as it does to retain an existing customer. And if you trade with people very much, I'll give you a good example. And you can go over there. You can go look at Zillow or Trulia, which are two real estate places. And I like for fun just to go over there and look at houses. And it's like clockwork. No sooner does that happen than I start to get stuffed in my inbox. And we all have an email. I know you are. What I call a crammer's email. It's like a closet somewhere in the house where people just cram stuff because they don't know what to do with it. You probably had crammed stuff under your bed when you were a kid. It's the same. And you'll get these people sending you these emails about special deals or how rate your experience and on and on. That's how they keep you as a customer. They want to maintain that relationship with you because it's much easier and cheaper to do that than to have to go find new customers. Now, those of you who are marketing majors may or may not remember this term or have encountered it. You may have heard the term a Markov analysis. And a Markov analysis is a very simple way where we have two. The classic is brand A, brand B. And I'm with brand B. And here's the percentage or the probability I'll stay with brand B next month, or the percentage of probability I'll go to brand A. We know from just simple, we know from running simulations of Markov and just the nature of it, that after about the fifth or sixth iteration of those choices, they get stopped. You start getting the same or near same result. And it's a mathematical picture of brand loyalty. When people become loyal to a brand, they're there. It's hard to get people to change their purchasing habits. It's hard to get them to change. Cell phones probably have the greatest challenge with folks who are of a senior age who don't want all the bells and whistles, who yearn for the day of a flip phone where all you did was you made some phone calls. You might have a voicemail, but you didn't have all these apps and stuff. It's interesting. For example, my wife's mom is 94, lives by herself, healthier than all of us probably, and she has a Roomba, and the thing that sweeps and cleans. And she's very comfortable with that Roomba, and it works perfectly. And I thought, well, when she got it, she's going to be unhappy because no, she liked the Roomba. But her cell phone, she's on our phone plan, and it drives my wife crazy dealing with her because her mom, it really took her a lot of time to learn how to answer the thing, build contacts, etc. That she just didn't take to the technology. She didn't see it. And speaking of databases, your phone is one, and all of that information is harvested. Well, I think we've put in a good amount of time today, and I do want to encourage you to make sure you download this, save it on your desktop, and then upload so you get the credit. I'm going to close this off. Okay? And I'm going to pop up here, and let's talk real quickly about what we've got ahead of us. So we'll come into the modules. And I'll close this off. I thought I did. There we go. There's week 0 and week 1. Now, again, we've talked about this architecture and concepts. Okay? And I would encourage you, don't try, download it. It's a PowerPoint. It's over 1 meg. And if you're in the wrong part of the building somewhere, you won't get it down. But here, I want to show you something that's very, very interesting. And of course, guns and gun violence is on the minds of everybody. And so here's an interactive map of that. Okay, and it's interesting. How many people have been shot near you this year? And so they're using geographic information, GIS, geographic information systems. They're using coordinates. I'm going to put in 74804. You know where that is. And let's see how many we've had. And that would be Shawnee, Oklahoma. Okay. And there have been 2 shootings within a 3-mile radius of this point in the past year. None were fatal, 2 were non-fatal. So it's probably a couple of people who shot themselves in the foot. Closest shooting was Superman. Now, when you take this off, you can see this is why they call it an interactive database, because it lets you do searches, queries, and it's using spatial data, or it's using data and then expressing them in a spatial way, and so you can look for patterns. That's why they call it an interactive map. And and here you start to see they get some information pulled out. And they give you some data about what's on there. And then they give you a menu where you can look for some other maps. And these are nothing that a map that uses GIS is just simply putting a map down of an area on the earth and then putting layers on top of it based on data that are occurrences within that area. That's all it's really about. That's something I think would be very, very good for you to go and take a look at. The Los Angeles Times also publishes one of those that shows it shows crime around the city. And I think I'd shown you some of these. And as we go on, you'll see more and more. I'm showing you some of the advanced things that are happening in terms of mapping software. This is one that would be an entire course, how to develop and use Google AdSense to perform what we call a search engine optimization. That is to put tags, words in your website that will get you noticed. Because we know in consumer products, the first about the top, I think I wish I could remember where I read it, and I apologize, but I think the top 10% of the results in Google e-commerce generate about 60% of the sales. It's the 80-20 rule. A few people doing really, really well. And AdSense is a piece of that. And those of you who are marketing students, boy, if you get a chance to take a course on search engine optimization, do so. Do so, because, man, how you get placed has a lot to do with how successful your web presence is. I'm going to finish off with I'm going to have a little bit of fun here for just a minute. And we should always have some fun. So I'm going to go over here to the Los Angeles Times. And we want the Los Angeles Times. Okay. And we'll pop in there. And I'm looking around for, let's see, I'll close that off now. And I want to find the real estate. So we'll click topics. Now we'll come down here. We'll find real estate and called hot property. Now this is a database, and it lets you look at, for example, sales of celebrities' homes. Right? And we can see how the other half lives. Some of these houses are unbelievable. Well, they all are usually. But it's interesting because, again, I know I'm going to start to get some, some of the companies advertise on here, I'm going to start to get emails from them. And see, notice how they've incorporated multimedia. Because they're selling, here's a real estate agency. They're selling properties. And you may want to go over to Zillow or Trulia, look at them and see how they're used, those databases are used. Folks, thank you so much. And I've lost a few of us, but thank you, the three of you who stayed. You're the faithful remnant. God bless you. I'm one of them. And so I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording. And I will see you guys on Thursday. Thanks a lot.